Okay, so hello, Sophie.
Hi.
So you raised about $1 million for a non-profit student organization. Oh, what was it, and how did you do it?
Exactly. So, well, I was part of TUM Boring, the first generation. So we were a student group from the Technical University of Munich and the LMU, racing to build a TUM Boring machine, actually, which is quite a fun project because a TUM Boring machine, we're speaking about like 23 tons machine that can dig at 40 meters long tunnel. So it's like something like a quite gigantic project. And it started very randomly. So when I first moved to Munich, I was here for a semester exchange. And I didn't know what to do in the city or anything. So I saw in different forums. And there was like this website and it said like huge letters like deadline midnight today. And I was like, oh, damn, it's like 11:53. I would just like fill up the form. And I had no idea what it was about. And by chances of destiny or anything, I got invited to an interview and I realized like, okay, it's for a student group that wants to build a tunnel boring machine. Not just any machine, but the fastest tunnel boring machine. And I thought like, coming from a non-engineering background, that this could be like a nice side quest, just going to something very interesting, very random. And at the end, you will just learn something new. So I went into it and we had like this amazing team. Like we were all students and no one had ever built something like that before. And no one really knew exactly like how to go about it, but it was like something we figured out on the way. So we had like amazing engineers. I was part of the operations teams. And of course, to build a project like that, you need a huge budget.
Yeah.
So we realized, okay, how do we get the money? We started to look into sponsorships and crowdfunding. So when it comes to sponsorships, we start contacted not just one or two, we contact hundreds of companies in Germany, in Europe, that could help us to find us as sponsors. So a lot of them were industrial companies and a lot into like the engineering side of things that were doing like these donations for this project. As well as we also raised like more crowdfunding oriented. So we did a Kickstarter campaign, for example. And this type of projects also to raise on the other side as well. And at the end, we managed to raise over $1 million for this like crazy student project, actually.
Yeah, that sounds crazy, especially because you don't see any return on invest directly for those companies.
Yes.
That makes really what was in for them.
So for them, depending exactly which company had different requests, but a lot was into like talent acquisition, basically. Because you have this group of amazing engineers who are like about to get graduated in a few years. So for these companies, it's like a way to acquire like great talent, as well to get to be known in this industry. As well, for example, there was a lot of that had like their logo in the machine, for example, or that had like partnership events with our team or stuff like this that helped them also for PR. We were featured in over 70 newspapers across 3 continents. So of course, we have like the logo of these companies that really helped them.
Okay, interesting. So did many of the students then get an internship at those companies, or okay?
Actually, yes, like all the team, like everyone from engineering operations, we all got like internship offers from different companies. So it's actually like a quite fun position to be at.
Yeah. Okay. Crazy. Okay, but like building a 23-ton machine to dig 40-meter long holes is quite a task. How far did you come with that?
Actually, we won the first place in the international engineering competition, which was actually quite fun. Because back then, the Boring company was organizing this competition worldwide. And we were participating with our machine, and there was other 400 teams from like top universities, also like MIT and everything participating. So we made it to the 12 finalists, and we had to actually ship the machine from Munich to Las Vegas to be part of these finals. And it was like a whole dynamic, whole logistics to get it there. And it was like a fun competition because basically they had like the starting moment, and then all the teams have to like dig the tunnel as fast as possible, and the fastest one to complete it and that can have like a small cargo inside wins. And we won the first place, and it was like such like a huge milestone because it was like the first competition ever for like tunnel boring machines happening, and we won it. And of course the legacy continued because our team like was only part there for the first year. Most of my generation was, and there was like new students coming up for the second year. And we kept winning like the second and the third competition right now. So.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, that already sounds a lot like a startup, even though it's a student club. How did you actually do it? Like, I mean, that sounds tough. And even thinking about $1 million for such a machine, like, it's not just the planning, it's also construction. I think construction is probably almost a harder part than the planning itself.
Yes.
is expensive. Like, how did they do it?
Actually, it was super interesting because, as you mentioned, it worked almost like a startup, basically. So we had like a very well organized team. So we had like half our team was in the engineering side, and within engineering we had like sub departments basically. So we had the cutter head team, we had the control panel team. You know, we like separate depending on the skills that each student had, because we have a mix of different backgrounds. So we had like some doing their like bachelors in electrical, in mechanical, aerospace. You had like different areas. And then in the operations side, which was the area where I was at, it was more divided into, okay, what do we need right now? So we need the sponsors. So, okay, we will organize that everybody reach out to this list. We have like these shared files. We all like start like reaching out to as many companies as possible, contacting press as well, organizing the logistics because we needed a place to build. So we partnered up with a company that borrows space next to a lake, which was actually really nice to start building the machine. We had also a lot of help from the university for like using the labs, for example, the makerspace. We were able to built already certain pieces with the machines that are in the makerspace, and then assembled everything on site in this like construction site, which was basically like an hour away from Munich.
Yeah, where you managed to build all this together at Garching? Like,
so part of it was in Garching, like the components, and part of it we actually like built them on the site in the construction site. We were borrowed by this company was sponsoring us.
Ah, okay.
So we like made certain pieces. For example, the cutter head that was done in Garching, the makerspace, and we just like bring it to the site and assemble it with the other parts. Because at the end it's like a huge machine. So
yeah, I can imagine. Also, you probably transport is also a little bit stressful.
Yeah, transport was so stressful. Like I was in charge of organizing the logistics for the shipping, and not just the machine, but the people as well. Because during that time, we're speaking about 2021, so there was like the COVID regulations, and there was this rule that happened from the US that they didn't let people who were in Europe in the last 14 days enter the US. And unfortunately, like for the competition, we had to take care of these dynamics, and we have to bring all the team to Mexico for 14 days to be able to then enter to the US, actually.
Yeah.
So it was like planning everything, like from accommodation, flights, transportation, the machine itself. So we ship it from Germany by boat to Texas. Of course, after having had such a tough ride, the machine had to be fixed. And there was things that broke and things to be arranged. So we had like part of the team which flew to Texas from Mexico to fix the machine. At some other company sponsors us to give us like the space there. And then the machine was shipped by truck to Las Vegas, which is the competition site. And then we assembled the last pieces and the last things on site.
Yeah, so it sounds like a marathon and a sprint at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. It was like a whole 1 year long project.
Yeah, crazy. And okay, but then how deep was it able to dig, and how long was the time for the competition?
So the time was like the first one finishing. So we took around 4 hours to take our machine. And how long was, so we had like the 40 meters long. Yeah. And then it was not super deep. It was like depending the specific time, because it was like basically create like a curve, you know? So it was like some points that start like ground level, go down to 3 meters down and then up again. So that was like how it was. It was done in the desert, which was actually quite exciting, because even for testing that, we tested in the soil here in Germany, which is not the same soil conditions as in the desert. Yeah. So we came across to so many challenges that we didn't think there was going to be, even like metal pieces and cables and stuff like that, which were buried in the desert there. So that makes it part of the challenge to make this tunnel work.
Yeah, like building such a big drill on it's not really a drill anymore. It has so many challenges in it. If you think about like I'm obviously an electrical engineer and see already 1,000 challenges you have to solve to get it working, and then that you also do it for different terrains makes it even harder. Okay, great. What I always want to with student projects, the students learn a lot, but then was it used in a real industry or something after the competitions?
So not yet, but it's planned to. So which is an interesting thing is that after the competition, of course, like there was a question what happens with the machine. So it was for like almost 2 years in Garching, just like as a thing that people can go sightsee. But then like from part of the student organization, like there was part of my generation of TUM Boring, decided to think about like building actually a startup out of this. So they start like working more further into it, and now they're looking into how to create tunnels not just for cars or something like that, but actually for electric cables to go through the city. So they're using like the whole like things that were developed for the machine to actually do these like small machines that can be developed. So they're still in process. So they're now having like a year and a half since they started this startup. But I'm really excited to see this being used in real life, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. Okay. What were your main takeaways from that part?
Oh, there were so many. I think that something which was very important is how to have like a good functional team is the key. Because at the end there was 1,000 challenges to be done. And it could only have worked which everybody do their own part. So it's like a little like ant colony, you know, like each one has its own task and each one like collaborates with each other, and how organization is so important. I think that was like something I learned from that, because you need to keep track of everything, how everybody's doing, how all these dynamics. So I think that was like one key takeaway. Second one was like there is no challenge which is too big to achieve. Because if you think about it, like how can you picture at the beginning to be like, okay, we are a group of students. Most of them we were in our bachelor's, which had never done a project like this, and we're going to build a 23 tons TUM Boring machine. It sounds crazy, but at the end, like everything, if you break it down and then just like build it like from like small one step at a time, is possible to achieve. And I think that happens so much with startups as well. Like a lot of these like development that are being built is also this type of dynamic. You know, you have to aim as like this hardest challenge you can think of, and then okay, see what are the steps I need to get there.
Okay, I understand. So then you said you left after a year, right? Or?
Yeah, so we had like the first competition at the end of the year. Most of the group like stopped there. Some of them continued actually, and they recruit like new people for the next year competition.
Did you then have some of the members? Did you met some of those members later as co-founders again, or?
Actually, yeah, it's actually really fun because we kept in touch with them, and we have seen each other. Like for example, last year, quite a lot of us, because we were all in San Francisco at the same time. Which is quite exciting because, for example, some of like my closest teammates in the competition, now they're founders. So, for example, two of them built a company together. They got like 2 million fundraising and so on. They're based in Palo Alto right now.
Oh, okay. Crazy.
Another one was now doing research in Berkeley, for example. Another one was also in Stanford for a few months. So last year was like a quite fun moment because a lot of them we like meet in the same place at the same time. So that's actually really nice, and a lot of went into startups. I think like at least like 8 people on the team founded a startup after that, which I think is quite cool.
Yeah, that's also a lot, especially like how many were you?
So we're in total 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that's 16%. That's a lot, and it seems like by the numbers you told us how much they raised, that's already quite successful.
Yes, actually, yes, they have been doing amazing. I'm also proud to see like how they're doing, you know, and how they're like advancing. Yeah,
like 16% success rate from any organization, and for startup founders is crazy. I mean, even the biggest VCs usually are around 5%. Better if they're in later stages or more.
Yes,
but okay, crazy. I didn't know how big TUM Boring was.
Yeah, it's actually like a cool thing. It's like a very niche organization, but yeah, there's a lot of people who went into startups after that. Also in different spaces. Like there's one funding in software for construction, other one's for software for automation emails. You know, they have like all these like different areas that went into. So it's quite exciting.
Okay, then you did yourself your first company after TUM Boring, right?
Yes, exactly. So right after TUM Boring, exactly like 1 month after, I decided to go into startups and build something myself. And I created like alcohol-free gin company. So we developed using molecular technology a way to make alcohol-free taste like alcohol and also like burn in the mouth. So I have like this like 360 degrees experience.
Yeah. Okay. How did like building a new drinking brand or something is, I think, incredibly hard. So you first have to convince distributors, then single shops to actually buy it from the distributors, and then also market it to consumers, which is extremely difficult. You have 2 times B2B marketing and 1 time B2C. So starting a new drinking brand is extremely hard, but you managed to actually exit it a couple of years later. So how did you were you able to convince each of these parties that a gin was actually any good and to try it?
Yeah, it was very, very hard actually, because it was like a lot of cold reach out, because either me or my co-founder, we both had like no idea about the industry when we went into. So we learned through the way. So first we developed the product, and there was like a very long process because we did a lot of testing iterations. We reached out to different like manufacturers, distilleries, everything to be able to get started. And so we found like this really nice distillery in Belgium in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, which was willing to, okay, we borrow you the space, we help you out, we can build this. And from there to start to getting into distributors, that was so complicated. We like cold reach out hundreds of distributors and just like send them like, hey, do you want to give it a try? We can send you a bottle to try it out, test it out. Most of them never answered. We went in person, like we knocked in the doors, just go and try to get them testing. And thankfully it happened the moment that one in the Netherlands, so it's a distributor which is specialized in soft drinks and alcohol-free beverages in general, was like, okay, give me one bottle and I will try it.
Okay.
And that was for us like the breaking moment, because it was like, okay, if they like it, we have our first customer. And when we have the first one, it's easier to go on. And they loved it. Oh. Like they called us right away when they tried it, and they were like, this is amazing, it's way better than we have tried so far. And we want 3 pallets, which is a lot. And we're like, okay, perfect, now we have to manufacture it and ship it and get it done. And with them was amazing because they were distributing in 19 European countries. So they were in charge of like a big distribution. Okay. Yeah. So for us it was like a great deal to go with them, because from that point on it makes everything way easier. Like once you have the distributor, you are able to go into shops and be like, okay, you can just acquire from this distributor already distributing you a lot. Also a lot comes as inbound from them, basically. Like they have their menu, their catalog, they show to bars, and bars are like, oh, I want to give it a try. So that makes it a way easier. So,
okay. So they basically helped you sell it to the bars, and then the bars sold it to the consumers directly.
Yes, exactly.
So that's very interesting. So after solving the distributor problem, almost solved all the others completely.
Yes, basically. So that's like the interesting part. It depends a lot on the strategy from different drinks companies they have. Some of them target more like direct to consumer, and they have their own online shops and so on. We were more focusing on just, we go through distributors, we sell them in bars, we sell them in like small shops, and then the people try it out because in the bar menu or things like that. Okay.
Code outreach is always something where people are like, don't want to do it. But you had to do it with probably 1,000 distributors.
Yes, actually we did around 4,000.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What channel? Until the one said yes?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we tried everything. We tried small shops, supermarkets, everything before that one said yes.
Yeah. What worked best?
What worked best? Actually, I think the best is, like for our case, was like through email, actually. So even if it's very old school, of course it depends from industries, but for the drinks, still a lot is done old school by email. So we just like went through like the websites of the different ones, like things like softwares like Apollo help out a lot to like source different emails and just like try to like reach out by email as much as possible. And that was what worked best for us.
Okay. And did you like just try to contact the normal contact page, or did you try to contact the CEO, or who was the person you tried to reach?
So if we were able to get the name of the CEO, that was the best go. But they're not always public. So something that we were like trying to get, if we can get like the email of the CEO, we will definitely contact them. A lot of times also what worked was the people who are in charge of buyers, actually, it's called. So it's like, for example, in supermarkets, there's like this person who's in charge to buy like the new brands that will come into the market. So this was like a key player on that type of decision making. And otherwise, if we couldn't find the specific emails, we'll try with the general contact being like, hey, we want to talk with someone in the buyer department. Who should we email? And a lot of times they actually answer to that.
Okay. Another question pops up right after that. Most people would probably give up after 10 no's. Yes. And during people would usually give up after 100 to 1,000 no's. How were you able to tolerate so many no's and still believe in it?
Oh, I'm so used to fail, actually. Okay. I think that's the secret behind it, is that I have failed so many times and try again that I just like hear so many no's and I'm like, fine, like it doesn't matter. Like I should keep pushing it because at some point with one person telling you yes, that's enough. same thing happens with a lot of things in life. Like I applied so many times for the same fellowships or for the same programs, and I got rejected like 3 times in a row before getting invited to an interview. And these type of things I feel like makes you like more resilient about it. Like you don't give up. And I learned that also as an athlete, because you will fall so many times in the water and you always have to like restart again, like put yourself back in, you know. So it was like a thing like, okay, I will have like a few months before I decide to see, okay, will this work or not? And during these months I'll go all in the whole day, Saturday, Sundays, you know, like try as much as possible. We even try, like, it didn't work out, but it was like funny anecdote is that we try even like handwritten letters actually to like some brands, like distributors. So we like, okay, we find their address, we send them like a handwritten letter and see if they answer. They didn't, but it was, at least we tried different methods, we tried different things.
Okay, yeah, but the handwritten letters at least show some effort, right? Yes, that's for the podcast I tried to do some video invites for people I couldn't speak to in person. Nice. So far it has worked somewhat well, but some just didn't watch the video. Yes. But I like the idea a lot. Interesting. Okay, then did you target special companies? You said the distributor that in the end said yes was one who distributes just alcohol-free beverages that usually that in a normal market would contain alcohol, right? Yes, exactly. So in this case, they were distributing things like alcohol-free wine, for example, all the way to soft drinks and like, for example, sparkling water, mineral water. So they are like more in this focus side. We were targeting both at the beginning. So we're saying, okay, soft drinks companies, but also like companies who distribute alcohols as well. To try to be like, okay, you usually distribute gin. Here's one option, you know, that's alcohol-free and maybe it can help you out. So we had like all these different approaches. We tried with grocery shopping, with specialist shops. We also targeted a lot at the beginning bars directly, like go to the bars and be like, hey, here's like a bottle, like try it out and give us your opinion. And I think what works best is going through distributors of alcohol-free beverages. Okay, I understand. But did you contact other also as well? Or? Yes, I contacted the other ones as well. Okay, yes. Okay. Yeah, we tried from the different angles. Like it was the first time with my co-founder we were like looking into actually how to build a startup, how to get a product. So we went all in, we tried everything. We even like DM'd on Instagram the distributors. You know, we tried like different approaches, like whatever we could find and as many as possible choices. Okay. Was there already an alcohol-free gin on the market? So there was one, but it was pretty bad. Yeah. So that was like part of it. And that's also like the feedback why we were able to get into the first one. It's like, okay, we never tried something that tastes like that good. So that was a good thing. Okay. And then like the first, like the tolerance of no, but you were really convinced that yours is better and that people actually want it. So there's one thing with being able to tolerate no's, but what did convince you that it was not just better for you, but actually for everyone or almost everyone who would try it? So we did a lot of beta testing, basically. So when we were developing, we did many versions. Of course, the first one didn't work out well. But once we had like something that actually tastes alright, because I haven't drank alcohol for like since many, many, many years. And it has always been a thing that when I go to bars with my friends, I was like, oh, why you don't drink, you know, and this type of dynamics. And I haven't tried like something that actually like tastes like a cocktail properly well done and that has like this type of nuances. For example, when it comes to gin, the whole flavor profile is like very specific. So when we're able to create something that was like similar to this experience of like a gin and tonic, we had like testing rounds actually. Even here in Munich, we had like with 20 people come, test it out, give their opinion, test different versions, and analyze like what they actually think. So we did with like average consumer, but as well we also did with sommeliers as well. So we had like award-winning sommeliers where we ship them our like sample basically and be like, hey, what do you think about it? Give us your feedback. And receiving feedback is so important. That's like something that helped us, because even for example the version we launched was not necessarily my favorite one, because I had like a favorite one which was like more floral notes, but after hearing the feedback from people saying, okay, this one is the one, we're like, okay, perfect, we go for the one that people want actually. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How long did this project take in general? So it took almost 2 years. Okay. How did you manage to create the gin taste without drinking gin? I mean, it's very interesting because a lot of it comes from the smells actually.
So you're able to, because gin is such a botanical drink by itself. A lot of gins have like 48 different spices in it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it you can like decipher basically based on the smells and based on like how the combination of like spices work.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. I feel like it's a type of art because at the end you have to play with this like palette of like if you were painting a painting, you know, and you have like juniper berries and you have also like coriander seeds and you have like more like citrusy flavors. So if you go from kumquat, you have like a more bitter taste at the end. You know, you're like composing it basically. Like if you do any recipe, the same thing goes straight, and a lot of them you can just smell them through. It's like a parfum almost.
Interesting. Okay. Is it the same with most alcoholic beverages? Or?
Not all of them. There's like certain yes and no, because for example, if you go for a vodka, it's very straightforward. You know, you don't have so much of these like botanics around
Potato-like and strongly alcoholic. Yeah.
Exactly. So those ones definitely not. But there's other drinks which are way more aromatic and definitely have like this type of approach as well.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Okay. And then you did the normal iterate and improve approach with the taste, or? Oh.
Yeah, so it was like we iterate and we improve. Well, so we iterate and it was worse than the previous version. So that happens. But it was like a whole process. We had so many samples at the end, and we learned a lot based on the feedback, because a lot of things like what I could taste or my co-founder could taste, and other things like what actually people enjoy more. And based on that, we were like directing it. Okay, people were like more citrusy flavors, so we like go forward to put it more into like adding other type of tangerine and kumquat into it and so on. And it was like a mixing it depending on what people want.
Okay. Okay, crazy. So now you have a great tasting alcohol-free gin and a distributor who sells it. So now you go into production, or did you already did it previously?
So we did like a small batch first to try to get the producer. So we did like 100 bottles at the beginning to be able to ship them to different distributors and so on to get them tested. And once we had like the sign, we went into production. So we were manufacturing in Belgium. We found this small distillery in the middle of nowhere, which was able to do like smaller batches for us. Of course, the whole process, not just this creating the drink, but also creating the brand around it, like everything from the branding to the bottles to even the caps, how they're designed. You know, you have like so many like little steps you don't think about it in advance, that you have to get everything ready for manufacturing. And once you have it ready and you start manufacturing, then it's a dynamics of like shipping, logistics, and so on. So we had like a warehouse that were able to when each time we had an order that delivers directly to the different distributors. So it was like a whole dynamic in all the supply chain as well. We had in a moment where, for example, like the glass bottles became super expensive because there was like a shortage of glass. So I was also like thinking, okay, how do we able to stock up enough bottles to continue with manufacturing without having to have like a dead of stock at some point? So that's something that we were like really focused on, making sure that all the operations and logistics are on point.
Okay. Yeah, that brings like a whole new set of challenges then with it. But you said before that the distributor mainly sold it and also to the local bars and stores.
Exactly.
So you didn't have to do any advertising there, or?
No. So we did some. For example, we went to Paris for a few months and we tried to get into like the more like trendy bars, for example. Because once like a lot of markets follow trends. So for example, when it comes to Paris, if this specific bar has it, the other bars are also going to start ordering it. So we had to do this type of marketing to go and talk with the owners of the bars, like bring them like a tasting and so on, and make them like a nice box and all this type of marketing to the bars. We had to do that, but it was not necessarily. It was just like nice to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Great. With physical products, that's then usually harder to increase the revenue over time. Like.
Yes.
But how long did it took until it was actually profitable, and how fast did it improve from there on?
So it's actually quite nice because business models for alcohol-free beverages are quite nice. In a sense, like they fall into like this premium drinks category. That of course not as expensive as alcohol, but it's considered like it's cheaper, but not as cheap as like Coca-Cola either.
High margins.
So we have like really high margins because something that, for example, when it comes to alcohol drinks, they have high amount of taxes. So that's why like the price is so high. But when it comes to our product, it's like no taxes for alcohol, no taxes for sugars either, because it's a complete alcohol and sugar free. So we had like very good margins on it. So of course, the first batch we had to pay up front the bottles, paying up front the manufacturers. But once we sold the first batch, we were already profitable.
Okay, crazy. And then you were able to live off that?
Yes, and actually the cool thing is that we started with 50 euros actually. So for our first batch, even we did a Kickstarter campaign, and we like sold already like our first batch of bottles. So we didn't have to put like anything from our own money. We were like students when we started.
Yeah.
So we went like with 50 euros, and from there we were able to live out of that. Yeah.
You then had to do a student working job or something on the side to finance until you could sold it, or?
So we did the Kickstarter campaign right away. So we started in October with the campaign in November. Like we were like really like straightforward into it.
Okay.
And we were like able to do this campaign. We didn't have a product yet when we did the campaign. We were like, we are going to do a cool alcohol-free gin. And we just had like some mock-ups of the bottles, how the bottles would look like. They look very pretty, like this type of sales. And we even made, it was very funny, we made like a commercial with my co-founder. We just like record ourselves talking about it and make it like all in our phones and just like put it in Kickstarter. And thankfully we were able to reach our Kickstarter goal within the first month. So we had like enough money to already get into it.
Yeah. How much was it?
So we raised 2,500 euros.
Okay.
That's what we needed for the first batch manufacturing.
Okay. Yep. But now I see also why you were confident that it would sell. Because if people already give you that much money to do it, then they're likely going to be customers later.
Yes.
Kickstarting is something that's kind of not much talked about anymore when it comes to fundraising. I mean, people almost only talk about VCs and about government money like exists.
Yes.
What kind of businesses do you see as especially as a good use case for Kickstarters?
Oh, I think that everything that you want to go into consumer is a very good space to be at. So, for example, a lot of like consumer gadgets, in the sense like consumer electronics, are really good now on Kickstarter. A lot of people go into Kickstarter, for example, for board games or things more on the creative side. So that's also like very often seen. And when it comes to beverage or house things, for example, if you have developed a new type of a sponge, for example, let's say, these type of products are amazing in Kickstarter because a lot of the target group is not only like young people, but it's more into the millennial wave, basically. They have enough income that they have disposable income, basically, you can spend on this type of things that improve their day-to-day life. And it's actually crazy how good of a strategy Kickstarter can be. I have a friend in the US who he started his startup. He do carbon fiber guitars. And he did a Kickstarter campaign where he had more than $1.7 million in the Kickstarter campaign, which is actually crazy. Like, if you think about it, you don't have to go through like a VC route necessarily. Like, you can just go and do like a good campaign. Of course, there's like a whole strategy behind it, and they had to partner up with influencers and everything, and like getting like the word out there. But it's a completely different way. You don't have to give away any equity, for example, which is great as a founder.
Also, I think having a VC in your neck can be a pain in the ass itself.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it can be like, depends a lot which VC you choose. There's some that could be like really big pain. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, one thing that also comes to mind is, especially for B2C consumer products, Kickstarter could also be used as a measurement for how much people actually want it.
Yes.
Like, in the end, you want to see if they're able to pay for it.
Exactly.
And if they are paying for the idea or your pitch of it. You said you had no product.
We had no product, yeah.
Yeah. That's also might be a good way to just test if it's actually a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Like, A/B testing is great on that sense. Also, you can do, for example, different tiers as well. So if you're unsure about your product, like how many features you want to have or stuff like that, you can always like do like an A/B testing directly in the Kickstarter, saying like, okay, I have this version, I have this version. Like, do people want to pay more for having this or this, And it's like really good. I see a lot of startups getting back into it because it's not so talked about, mainly not so much in Europe, but in the US, there's a lot into consumer electronics area. For example, I met some founders in the stuff that they develop a new way of having like a very small camera lens that you can attach to your phone, but has like high quality resolution.
I'm very interested in that idea.
Amazing. I will send you the link.
You see those two more lenses on the...
Perfect.
No?
And for example, they did raise VC round after that, but the first take was, okay, we go Kickstarter, we see how many people actually want this, and then they went to raise after that, saying like, okay, look how many people pre-order it. And that was like a good way to have like a reassurance from the market.
Okay. Might be a little bit off topic, but do you know how far they got, like how they work with manufacturers. I was like, you can't take a lens off an iPhone, for example, but putting a lens in front of another lens can only be used to zoom further in. And it also increases the light that's coming through. So every lens has a certain transmission value, and that's also can be increased with higher apertures. But usually more lenses make it less sharp. So do you know how they went with the...
I don't know the science behind it. I know there's a product that is patented.
Yeah.
So they developed something interesting on it.
Okay.
But I would be really curious to know exactly how they do it.
Yeah, okay. It's just me being a camera nerd.
Oh, I can send you the link. I think it will be really interesting for you to see further, like how it actually works and everything.
Yeah. Really curious about it. Because like doing photography good. On a technical side, for one, you need a sensor.
Yes.
Bigger is usually better, because the more light goes onto it, the more noise resistance it is. But what's even more important is the lens, because in the end, the lens makes the picture. How the light falls through it determines how sharp it is, how much chromatic aberrations and which focal length you have. So the lens is kind of more important than the camera, if the camera is able to capture the image in a way the lens can deliver on it. So the idea is great. Yeah. Okay. So then you probably... okay, so then you had a profitable business. You didn't raise any further?
No, we didn't go for VC at all, actually. It was fully bootstrapped.
Yeah. But then you exited after 2 years in total, right?
So what we did is that we sold the recipe to our competitors, actually. Which is a quite interesting hybrid approach. Because for us, it worked great, because we're in this moment where we're thinking, okay, do we want to continue with it, or do we want to go into something more exciting or something different? For example, my co-founder was thinking of going back to actually study university again, like going into Berkeley, because he got accepted at UC Berkeley. And we realized, okay, this is something that actually, like, building beverage and like creating new products is super exciting, but maybe it's not something that you want to do forever. And I think that's something that is a great realization to know, is because something is working and it's profitable, it's not necessarily that you have to be doing this for the rest of your life. So we got this offer to selling the recipe, so we sold the recipe, which is quite an interesting approach. And also I'm personally really happy, because I still can have like good alcohol-free drinks, and there's also more that have been developed in the last years. So now something that's like very normalized, and at the end that was like part of like the goal where we started, is that we want to have more options as alcohol-free drinkers. And then it was like this breaking point. So we decided, okay, we sell the recipe. My co-founder moved to the US to study at Berkeley, and I decided to move to London, actually, to do like a very particular program, which is quite exciting, because
But was the recipe exit in a sense big enough that you kind of achieved the founder's dream of building your company, doing an exit, and then potentially not having to work anymore?
So not having to work for a few years, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think I would get very bored. So that's something that I'm like, decide to go right into it.
That was also something I was thinking that could potentially happen to you after you had the success. So you got through these initial pain points, and then you could just grow it as a normal business. But
yes,
my intuition would tell me that sounds boring for you.
Exactly, that's like one of the main points, actually. Yeah, because the thing is that when you're creating something new, it's super exciting, but at some point it gets to be a bit monotonous. So I was like really looking for more of this adrenaline of being a founder, you know, like you want to be like having all these challenges, all these pain points, going through them. So that's something like quite exciting, because after that I had like 2 months off, and then I went to my parents, and I have like this like very calm life, and I was like, okay, I want a challenge again. I want to build a startup one more time, you know?
Okay. Well, yeah, very cool. Okay, then you got into a really cool program in London. Tell us about it.
So I went and become part of Entrepreneur First. So that's like an interesting program that is, they take like 35 people from different backgrounds. So there was a lot of people in tech, but also some other like random backgrounds as well. For example, there was like ex-ballerina, there was lawyers, there was like ex-actors from HBO series. You have like this like mix of people, and they bring them to this co-working space for 3 months. And during this time, basically the goal is to find a co-founder to have an idea, build a prototype, and at the end getting customers. Everything in 3 months. So it's actually a quite exciting program because you get to put yourself to the limit. Like you have a lot of pressure because you have to try out new things, and there's the time running out because if you don't have all this at the end, you're out basically. So you want to be able to achieve everything. And if you do have like a great co-founder, great idea, working prototype, and interested customers, you go to the next phase where they fly us to San Francisco. And they help us like to prepare for like fundraising. So they teach us like everything on fundraising, how to talk to investors, how to like pitch, all these type of things. Like a very intense like learning process, and then to be able to pitch in front of 400 investors in demo day.
Yeah, that was another crazy journey.
Yes.
So the company you came up was AthleteIq, right?
Exactly.
So Entrepreneur First sounds a lot like Antler to me. Do you know Antler?
Yes, as Entrepreneur First, it's very similar than Antler. That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so basically she told it, but the concept is to just throw 20 to 50 really talented people of different domains together and fund the ones who found something successful in. For Antler, it's 3 months. In Entrepreneur First,
it's 3 months the first phase. Yeah,
3 months as well, and at least at Antler, you don't need to have customers for the first. I think they give 100K for funding. But yeah, does Entrepreneur First also support them for further rounds and just pre-seed?
Yeah, so they can also continue. So you can support it, like you get an stipend during the program. At the end, you get 125K. And then after that, if you have like a further round, they can continue as well.
Okay. Yeah, okay, then those concepts are really similar.
Yes, yeah, indeed, actually, yeah.
Okay, so how were the founders you met? You said it's extremely diverse, like expert arenas to professional actors.
Yes, it was super interesting because everybody was so talented. Like you had like brilliant people there. And it was so cool to try to like work with different people from different domains and find ideas in common. So that was like a very fun part at the beginning. It was just like try to talk with as many people as possible and try to sit down and brainstorm during 1 hour and be like, okay, with this person, what areas can we have in common? What can we do actually? What can we build together? How does our skill sets overlap? So it was like a very intense process, but honestly, people there were like amazing. Everyone was like so interesting, so smart. So it was a really nice experience.
Okay. Then who were your co-founders for AthleteIq, and how did you come to go? How did you find that idea?
So my co-founder for AthleteIq is called Leo. He's an amazing guy. He's from Italy. He used to be an athlete as well before. He was a gymnast, and he is very, very good on the technical side. So basically, he studied electrical engineering and computer science at Imperial, and then went to do a PhD in Cambridge on biomedical engineering. And then he dropped out of his PhD to do this program.
Oh.
So it's actually like a really cool journey, and we have a lot of points in common into the sports because we were both athletes before, so we share a lot of the values as well on that. And how did we find this idea was basically halfway through the program, like already end of the second month. Because with this program, you team up with someone, you build something. If it doesn't work, you split, and then you team with someone else and build something, and like that. So at this point, I was like, okay, who are the profiles who are available right now? Because you have like this like table with like all the profiles, you have like the points of interest and so on. So we decided to go to talk together. We're like, okay, what can we build in the sports world? Because that was like our point in common there. And he was doing research on this very niche area of technology, which is called electromyography. And it's something that is very used in the sports science space, mainly, for example, for recovery. So after an injury, you're able to know how your muscles are doing by sticking needles in the muscle, which are very painful. I had to go through it. And then from there, like measuring the electricity. And he was doing research on how to make these like not only like smaller, but also like less invasive. And we were looking, okay, can we use this not just for recovery, but something that every athlete can use during their training? And what type of data can we get out of that? And how can we help them towards like have the biggest issue solved for athletes, which is injuries?
Yes.
So
the one who listened to the episode 7 with Raphael knows my experience with that. So, but yeah, how did you use it to prevent injuries?
So it's very interesting because we realized that through this, we can see how your muscle is doing in real time and how is progressing during training. So in a sense, like when you train, your muscle is not the same level of recovery or of exertion at the beginning than at the end. And so far, what's done in sports as state of the art is that's like how you're feeling, how's your rate of perceived exertion. And what we wanted to do is to have like a objective measurement, because if you ask the athlete, because of so many factors like emotional, the adrenaline, everything, he'll be like, I'm feeling fine, I'm feeling strong, and then a few minutes later he gets injured. What we're able to see is like how your muscles actually really doing. We can see when he's like very in distress, and we see like, okay, there is like this threshold between like being the best and overdoing it. And when you're like overdoing it, the risk of injury like skyrockets. Like there's like this area where it's like very, very, very risky. And we're able to tell you, okay, you have to stop right now because you're getting into this space where you can get injured anytime.
Okay, and it's also the case that professional athletes don't go into that area during normal training. So
actually happens often injuries during normal training as well, which is quite interesting because you think, okay, a lot of things could happen during you're in a championship at the finals and you want to push forward. Yeah. But a lot of it also works during the training, because sometimes you train and you feel like, okay, had a great night of sleep, I'm very recovered, I'm doing really well in life, I'm really happy. So you don't feel like your levels are the same as if you have like a very bad day, you go to training and you're annoyed and your levels are different. So sometimes you have like this whole like more subjective measurements that push you to have like different perception of your own levels and your own like rate. So a lot of times happen because of this type of misunderstanding that, for example, you didn't recover well enough, you're just getting started. I was talking with a Olympic weightlifter like last week about it. It's like, yeah, he told me about an injury he had when he was like warming up. Because he overtrained the day before, he didn't recover, he just went like, oh, I'm fine, I'll do strong, and like hamstring tear, Yeah. So that type of things happen.
Yeah, that's on that Olympic weightlifter story is a story I heard often, powerlifting. So there's the thing that 90% of muscle ruptures happen on a good day in quotes. So they usually, when people grow to the strongest, their joints and ligaments take a lot longer to grow with the muscles, and that's how all the strength sports, the muscle tears happen. So that's a really big issue. And then you see professional athletes sometimes never come back from the injuries, or just needing 3, 4, 5 years to get back to where they were a year before the injury. Especially in strength sport, a hamstring tear can be career ending.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what kind of injuries then are you able to detect or give warning against?
So overuse muscle injuries.
Okay.
So that's our focus for the moment. In the future, we want to expand to other type of injuries as well. But right now, we're focusing just in overuse. So
rhabdo or more like tendons and...
So we're focusing more than tendons right now on like pure muscles, actually. So we have like, now we're doing a study for validating the technology, which we're doing it with 100 athletes. So it's actually quite an exciting moment because we're seeing like how our technology is like useful in any muscle actually. So you can just place the device and we're able to say, okay, how your bicep before like a tear, hamstring, like we can able to see like different areas, but it's just on muscles right now.
Okay.
So, ligaments, other spaces we're going further afterwards, but we just want to like have the technology right first for one specific use case and go further. So
then injuries would be like small tears, like
tears is like mainly that's our focus.
Okay.
Yes. Which are quite often actually.
Yeah, very interesting. And I also see a really broad range of applications for it. I mean, bodybuilding is a huge thing, and another thing that's great for the business side, professional athletes usually don't have their careers for 1 year, but for multiple ones.
Yes, it's true.
So kind of a subscription model would actually make sense, right?
That's what we're doing, actually. Indeed. So we have, in terms of pricing, we develop like a one-time fee for the device and then a subscription model from there on.
That's similar like a Fitbit or?
Similar in the sense like, so the device itself is different. So it's a patch.
Yeah.
So that's like, but in terms of the subscription is like we charged $299 for the device and then like a $9 a month subscription from there on.
And you have to put this device once on your body, and works for all muscles or just for...
It works per muscle groups, basically. So depending the type of exercise, you have to place in different places.
Yeah.
And there's some like more complex things, like for example, when it comes to compound exercises or things like that, you might need like a few different sensors placed at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
So that really depends on what sport are you doing. If we're talking about golf, one here is more than enough, you know. If you're talking about like tennis, it's like a bit different. So it really depends.
Golf players tear their biceps? Yeah,
actually, it's like golf is such like a interesting case for us.
Yeah.
Because the amount of muscle overuse injuries is quite strong. Because they are doing the same movement over and over again.
Yeah, but isn't that the case with almost all sports?
Yes, but you have more variety. So, for example, when it comes to golf, or also like for example the pitcher in baseball, the range of movements that you do is very like limited, and the amount of muscles which are like involved in it is also very specific. So, for example, you have other sports that are more complex. Let's say, for example, American football, you have so many muscles that are involved. So the pressure into like when you do again and again the movement is more distributed. And when it comes to, for example, golf, or as I mentioned, like the pitcher, it's just like few muscles which are involved, and you're pushing as much as possible with these specific muscles over and over the same movement.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, so what I've heard so far is that you won a couple of pitch competitions with it.
Yes.
And in Entrepreneur First, you had the idea halfway through and pitched it in California, right?
Yes.
So how was pitching in the US, and how do you make sure your pitches are the great that you actually win them?
Oh wow, like the pitching experience was like such like a whole process basically. So it's not just about like we had the idea and we went and we pitched it, but we were trained for it. So before having the demo day in Entrepreneur First, we had like a whole 2 weeks of like full in just repeat hundreds of times your 3-minute speech. We were like to rewrite it again and like changes to make every single word count. Which was something that was very interesting, because you have to go from like a screenwriting type of process to then how to pitch. We had the chance to be coached by very good coaches to explain us like, first of all, don't get nervous in front of hundreds of people. Second of all, how to mention every single word in a way that makes it better, where to put like the silences, where to emphasize. So it was like a whole process of practice. Of course, trial and error, because we pitched many times before going to the main stage. We pitched in front of like our like cohort, and we pitched in front of like different investors that came just to see it for a day or so. And then in the moment, you have to make sure that everything is just like timed. Everything is like perfect. That you see the same sentence while you click the button that has the screen behind you, which you cannot see, you know? Everything has to be like well coordinated. And I feel this experience helped me out so much, because from there, once you learn it, you have it for everything. Like every single pitch I have done since that point, it was dramatically better than everything I had done before in terms of pitching. Like it really changed how you think, how you structure when you have to go on stage.
Okay. So what are you doing then exactly?
How do you first, when you are writing it, you have to tell a story. So you have to start with like a strong hook, like of course like with Instagram Reels or so on. You always hear it. But yeah, your first 10 seconds, like if people are going to be paying attention to your pitch, or they will be on their phone. So you have to have like a good, strong starting point. So for example, in our pitch, I always start that I used to be an athlete and I lost Olympics because of an injury. And that's like the starting point for our pitch. And then we explain like why injury prevention and why we developed and so on. Something that was very important in this like type of a structure is to have like a strong hook, strong ending. So like a call to action or something. And in between, you have to have at least like 2 wow moments. Because 3 minutes is short, but it's very long. So keeping someone's attention for 3 minutes is something that it's tough, you know? So for example, for us, one moment is when we introduce our product. So for example, we have our prototype. Most of the time, sometimes it's in the lab, so we cannot bring it to the pitches, but like most of the times, and we'll just like go and like show it, you know? And that's like a wow moment, you know? So this type of things balance out between like the attention. Also, we have the pitch structure to do with my co-founder, the two of us, or me alone. And when we have with my co-founder, we have this type of organizational, like who says what in which moment, to make it that is not too monotonous, or not like half, but like we like change, like okay, you say this sentence, then I go here, and then I'll say this, make it more conversational, that makes it more entertaining for the audience.
That's almost like an act, right?
Yeah, it is an act, basically, because when you pitch, you're an actor, basically. You have to see how your voice sound, how your gestures are, how you're standing, everything counts. And it's the little details that you don't even think about. Like, for example, once we were pitching, it's like there are certain words have to be pronounced in a stronger way. You know, you have to put more emphasis in your voice, and other ones like less strong because it is less important. So you want to have like every sentence you give to have like one key takeaway, you know, one key word that if someone has to remember, and you should like emphasize this specific word, for example. So that really helps for the pre-pitch preparation. Once you're on stage, the best thing is just to keep calm, because at the end, like if you get anxious or if you're nervous for a second, you basically lose track of everything else. Because if you're on the stage and you are nervous, you forget a word, and then if you forget a word, then your whole like screen and slides behind you, which you cannot see, is not coordinated anymore, and then it creates issues. A lot of times the pitches are timed. So for example, I was in the competition of the Start Summit in St. Gallen. There's like a huge watch behind you that has like per second, and they cut you off if you have like 3 minutes, 1 minute, 1 second, you know? Yeah. So you need to make sure that everything is on point, everything is on time. Yeah. So the key for it is just be calm. And for me personally, I really like pitching because I feel it's like a very nice adrenaline-driven activity, because I always like, okay, when you go into a stage, you know, there's like hundreds or sometimes thousands of people watching you. So of course it gets you like the inside like nervous, but I feel it's a fight against your nervousness, you know? Yeah. You cannot let it out. You're like, okay, I'm here and I know what I have been building. And it's a bit like when you're an athlete and you train for a month for something, and then it's like the competition day. Yeah. That's how it feels like. Yeah.
It also sounds like a great strength of yours, selling your ideas to others.
Yes.
You're very resilient to no's, and it sounds to me a lot like you can draw energy from pitching and all of those activities.
Yes.
And you got bored after it was easy.
Yes. Indeed.
I once read a book about that every activity sucks to some degree. And I think the hardest part about startups for most people is to go out and actually talk to their customers and not be like daydreaming about how their business is going to take over the world. And then talk to the first customer and hear that it's probably not going to work the way you hoped it was, sucks. And it seems like that this particular hard part seems to be something you enjoy. Yes. So no wonder it all worked out. Okay, very interesting. How do you fit the content, or how much is it even about the content?
So the content is super important because you want to tell everything you want them to hear. And it's like 3 minutes, super short. In 3 minutes, you can just be doing the introduction and then it's over, you know? Yeah. So you have to be very mindful that what you want to talk to them, in this case, to the potential investors, you want to pitch them the market. So why is this important? Who will buy it? You want to pitch them what is it, you know? So what's technology, how it works, how will you sell it? So for example, if a subscription model, these type of things is very important to say. And the question also, for example, is like if you have extra time to put like more features. For example, in our case, we cannot sell all the features during the pitch because otherwise we will take 3 minutes to do so. So we just focus on our three main features. We just say them. And then at the end, there's like 2 points which I think are very important. It's like, okay, the so what element. So yeah, there's these people and they have this problem. And there's this solution that you offer them, which has these features. So what happens, you know? So make them dream, make them think, okay, if athletes were using this, you know, it can help make their life better. Yeah. You know, like make this like element of like, okay, what happens if all these things align? And at the end, you have to have a call to action. So depending what your goal is, if you're fundraising, for example, I often have like a Calendly link behind me in the slides and say like, okay, book a meeting, you know, with a QR code. So people can go and directly book the meeting. If it's a more like pitch competition, it's like, okay, check the website, you know, and there's like a QR code with the website. People go into the website, they sign up to the newsletter, you know. So depending what you're looking for, you have to have like this call to action that changes. Also, I feel like every pitch is different. In the sense we made our script for the 3 minutes, and we just adjusted depending on the type of competition. So we just like changed certain things, but at the end the structure is pretty similar. At the end, if you tell it as a story, people like it. It's good.
Yeah. So okay, to summarize it, you first have to tell the story. Why are you selling it?
Yes.
Then you have to prove that people actually have that problem.
Yeah.
Then that you have to solve it. Then you have to make clear that you can solve it and make money from it.
Yes.
And all of this while being entertaining enough that they actually don't look at their phones midway.
Exactly. Yes.
And interesting. To make it more entertaining, like you said, you switched talking person after a sentence and then back and forth. And what kind of elements did you do to play with it and make it more interesting to listen to?
So for example, when you have like two people, that makes like the switching back and forth very important. Also because each one of us have a different pitching style. So for example, my co-founder, he's like very coach driven, you know? So he's like very like, when he talks like a coach.
Okay.
So that makes like a big change from how I talk. And that also tears like the attention, because people are like, okay, losing attention is, okay, who's talking to me, you know? That makes like a big change. And I think that's like when you have like these combined pitches is good. When you are a lone person pitching on stage, which happens also quite often, I have a lot of solo pitches, is basically having the surprise elements that really help, you know? So for example, starting with big stats, that's super important. In our case, for example, we start with the story, and then there is like, okay, 91% of athletes get injured. That's basically a lot.
Yes.
So people are like, wow, that's a lot of people, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
so this like type
we're
of
two
surprise.
of them.
Yeah. So this type of metrics are very important for people to be like, oh wow, you know? And then when you say, okay, and we developed this, you know, and you like make it like entertaining, like each time that you're saying something, they don't know exactly what you're doing, you know? Because a lot of times when you pitch, people have no idea what you're building, which is a quite good strength, because you can surprise them with like the things you have achieved. For example, something I love having is in a slide is having the timeline, you know? And I mean, now we have been working on it for longer, but for example, when we had the pitch, we had been working for 3 months together. And it's like, okay, in 3 months, we did this, and this, you know? We had like, okay, we achieved all this. And those things are like, people are like, wow, they're moving fast. Wow, they're doing great, you know? And those like wow moments are super important to keep people entertained.
Okay, interesting. Is it then that you kind of insert mini hooks in between of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, basically. So you have your main hook, and then out of it you have like 3 small hooks inside.
What I always like to do is like there's the factual knowledge and there's like the implicit knowledge of having it done.
Yes.
Are you able to pitch AthleteIq now to give us an example, or would you need your slides and everything?
No, I can do
a
pitch right now, sure. It will not be perfect because I haven't rehearsed in a while, because I have my next pitch in a week, and the last one was in March, sorry. So
no problem.
All right, so I used to be a professional athlete, top 50 worldwide, but I missed the Olympics because of an injury. Like me, 91% of athletes get injured, costing to their clubs over $8 billion a year in the US alone. But we decided to solve that. Introducing AthleteIq. We developed a wearable patch that's able to scan your muscles, tell you insights about how you're doing, and tell you when you're about to get injured. Super easy to use. Just take it, place it, train. That's it. We developed 3 core technologies to do that. So we have surface electromyography, which is non-invasive, and it's able to measure how is it going. We develop our own proprietary AI that's able to see this data, process it, and do predictions based on your training behavior. And we develop our own type of mechanical wearable reusable adhesive, basically. So what it does is that sticks to your skin, even when you're tired, when you're running around, when you're oily, sweaty, anything, it will not fall, which makes it quite amazing. You can just place it anywhere and start training. We started this company a year and a half ago. Since then, we developed the tech, we filed a patent, we moved to San Francisco, we fundraised, we got LOIs from key leading teams in different sports such as American football, gymnastics, and we developed a way that has a community of over 200 athletes, which gives us feedback on how our product is developing. Right now, we're doing studies with the University of Rome, having 100 athletes using it every single day to see how our technology is developing and how it's working. Our team behind it is Leo, my co-founder. He has a Master of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering from the Imperial College of London, and he was doing a PhD in biomedical engineering when he dropped out to start a startup. Before that, he used to be an athlete. He was a gymnast and he coached over 200 athletes to success. Myself, I started university when I was 13, and became professor at the age of 22. I used to be a pro athlete, top 50 worldwide, top 5 in North America, and I have won several engineering competitions such as the Elon Musk Not a Boring competition. Together, we're changing how people train, and this is just the first step. We want to leverage this technology towards more preventative health for everyone. Thank you. Thanks.
Very interesting. I noticed a few things. Like in uni, they teach you like the TUM sum sum.
Yes.
So for the ones not knowing, TUM is the total addressable market. So it means every athlete injury. Sum is the serviceable attainable market, the total market you could potentially sell into the TUM. And sum is the serviceable obtainable market, which is the market share of the sum you could potentially get in the next 5 years or something, in a realistic time frame. The first thing is, you said it you said it right in the beginning. It's an $8 billion market. Like establishing it was big. Next thing I noticed, you got really into the team. So first you said your previous successes of you and your co-founders, and that you dropped out to do it, which emphasizes how important it is to you. Especially like the team part was almost a minute.
Yes, it's super important.
Yeah. That was, and then also that the next part that really made a huge part of the pitch was you showing that you have this huge study, and that, I mean, the study is kind of to show traction, right?
Yes, and also to actually for us to validate the technology.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Very interesting. Okay. Because like this is very different to the way it's taught in university, where you're like, hi, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is our team, and the market is big enough to make you rich. Also, you wouldn't have really, I really want to know how the slides would be, but they would probably also be different, right? Or how were they?
Yeah, so the slides actually show a lot of the support of the things you cannot say because you don't have time. So there's a lot of things that are behind you when you're talking. Yeah. So for example, when we have like the timeline since we started a year and a half ago, then we have like break down everything we have achieved, all on the business side, on the like tech side, everything's like more like breaking down into like this beautiful graph. So these type of things are really good support because you don't have so much time. So they're able to like read, or what happens more often is they take a photo with their phones. So then they're able to read further down. So this is something that really helps. Also, like the props behind it. For example, when I explain the product, when I'm doing a pitch, I usually have the product and I can show it, and people are like, oh wow. And then there's like behind, there's like, it does this and that, like all the functions more into detail. We also have like, for example, what we use in our pitch, which is not always the case that people use it, but we really like it, is we have GIFs actually. So we have not just images, but we have, for example, when it's like how to use it, we have like a video of a guy like placing the device and just repeats itself, and the other one like training, and the other one like checking the results, So this type of things that makes it more dynamic, so it's easy to understand how it works. Yeah,
interesting. So you never really then explain a figure on the slide?
No,
you really
never.
Just use it to support what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. So that's also a new way a new way to do it, to have the text basically as your red line, and then use the pictures as support instead of the other way around.
Exactly. So it really supports, for example, when it comes to the team slide, we have all the logos of the institutions. For example, I've been a guest lecturer at UC Berkeley. I have like the logo, like I have lecturer at UC Berkeley, All these type of things like are very good for support, but we don't go and explain everything that is in it because you don't have the time, first of all. And second, what we learned in the US, which is a bit different to Europe, like exactly you explained how people learn at university, is that there the most important thing is people to remember you. Because you have a demo day, for example, there's like 20 startups pitching, you have 400 investors, but imagine like going through 20 different pitches. At the end, you forget half of it.
Yeah.
And you want to have like a story that is like interesting enough so they're paying attention. Yeah. And they will after that remember, oh, they are the injury prevention people, Like they are like, okay, I will contact them.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Then I guess you got the funding by Entrepreneurs First?
Yes.
Then did you also get for pre-seed funding at California?
Yeah, so we did a small round because, of course, hardware, you have worse valuation of the software, and whenever you don't have a product yet. So we did a smaller round there, and it was actually very good because it gives that enough runway to be able to get the product done. And we'll do like a proper round whenever we have it ready in the next months.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Then London is, I think, a bigger entrepreneurship center than Munich, and California is the biggest in the world.
Yes, California is huge. Yeah.
San Francisco. What made you move back to Munich?
So we decided, as I just mentioned, we did like a smaller round and we want to get the product ready. And we got very good partnerships in Europe. So we are doing, for example, all the studies with the University of Rome, which makes it amazing because like it's done with the university labs and everything. And that makes it that this move to Europe is quite strategic because our whole expenses for R&D is just cut in like minimal fraction compared to what it would be in the US. And we have a strong network here as well. So why Munich? Because we had to be like somewhere in continental Europe that makes it easier to move around. For example, I'm based in Munich, but my co-founder is based in Italy. And we split like the division of tasks based on what we have as resources in each one of these places. And it's easy to go back and forth as well. Yeah. So something that is very easy, that if I was in San Francisco and he was in Italy in the lab, it's like more of a different dynamics, works on the same time zone as well. That really helps. So
I also see that Italy and Munich are quite far apart. In this startup community, it's quite common that people have complete 100% remote work or similar, but different country is another story. Does it work well?
Actually, it works very good because it's interesting. A lot of our things are very different tasks because we have like a very good division of what is done by each one. So, for example, Leo, he takes care of the whole like technical development side. I take care of the business side. So a lot of, for example, my work is a lot remote, to be honest. Like have a lot of calls with teams, with coaches, with athletes. Most of it happen online because there's some teams in the US, some things in Germany, but like in different parts of Germany as well. Like I have like a call with Dortmund, I have a call here. So it really changes. And for example, everything has to do with the lab. Leo takes care of it in Italy where we have like the full-on labs. We have PhDs working for us and so on. And it's like a more in-person type of thing. And the advantage of being like in Munich is that it's like very easy to just take a flight and go there, and you're in there in 2 hours. So it's like very, very easy to like manage if I have to go there in person. But realistically speaking, a lot of my travels goes into conferences because on the business side, you have to go a lot to networking. You have to do so many conferences. Like next week, I'm flying to London. The week after, I will be in Paris for VivaTech. It goes like very often that I have to be moving around Europe, and Munich is like a good hub to do so.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Yes, I oftentimes see people belittle basically every entrepreneurship environment except California, and therefore it's not worth it that some actually specifically choose Munich or Italy. Yes. Interesting. Okay, so then you said the product is still in development, right?
Still in development. So we're still in this phase of like is make it or break it type of phase, you know? So
when do you expect to finish it?
So we have the first preliminary results end of July. So we will see. From there, like it depends. We will see, okay, if it's ready, or it's just like things to be changed or what do we need to do.
Next iteration.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a lot of unknowns in the moment, which also makes it exciting because you don't know what's happening afterwards. You know, you need to see like, okay, how the results went. A lot into, or like as we're testing it with humans, like a very slow and long process. So you have to have it, like we have been testing since September last year, basically. So you have to have like different like testing groups and everything, different type of exercises to everything to be able to validate that technology is ready there. So.
Okay, very interesting. Like, planned on this format to have some follow-up episodes with founders who were here already. So,
nice.
if it's launched, then that would be another interesting episode. Probably.
Definitely, I would love to come back.
Great. And I think I also saw on your LinkedIn that you were a TEDx speaker, right?
Yes, I was a TEDx speaker actually.
Well, what was your talk about, and how much was it similar to pitching?
So it was about pedagogy and education. So very different topic. And it was many years ago. It was when I was 16.
Oh.
So like long time. It was actually somehow similar to pitching, but it's a bit different. So that was my first time ever speaking in public. Before that, I had never spoken in front of more than 10 people. And I had to go to like the whole TEDx training basically because they bring different coaches and they explain you like how to structure the talk and how to go and actually talk. It was in Mexico and it was very interesting because I learned so much. And they also had like a quite interesting pedagogic approach. Like, for example, for like being able to speak in front of 500 people, which was a amount of people on the public. But then, of course, it went into YouTube, and then there's like thousands of people watching it, but you don't think about it in the moment. We even had like a class with a clown, actually, on how to not be afraid of talking in public and being embarrassed, you know. So we had like a lot of this coaching that I feel has been very helpful for me, that not be like scared of going to talk in public anymore, because I was like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You do a mistake and it's fine. People do mistakes all the time, you know. And we have also had classes on how to structure the talk. So for the TEDx, it's like a longer format. So we're speaking in a maximum of 19 minutes. Compared to 3 minutes is very different. And also the terms of coordination between slides and talk is very different than pitching, because, for example, in my TEDx talk, I only had 3 slides for the whole thing. When I do like my 3 minutes pitches, I have like 25 slides, and I just like keep like rolling them sometimes, because sometimes it's just like small animations, but you have to be like clicking it for the small animation, you know. So you have to be like able to like coordinate better with that. There was just very, very easy, very straightforward. I feel like I made so many mistakes in my TEDx talk, and I feel like sometimes I'm a bit embarrassed watching it, because I realized that I have like a nervous tick when I was on stage, and I was just like moving my arm, and I didn't even notice about it, or this type of things. Like, just like see afterwards, and you pay more attention to it. But it was such like a helpful experience.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, also at 16 sounds crazy young to do that. Okay. Then let's move on to the last big topic. You were a professional athlete before you founded AthleteIq, right?
Yes, exactly.
We heard the hook before, failed the Olympics because of an injury.
Yes.
So what sport did you do? How did you get good at it? And what made you stop?
I started windsurfing. Actually, windsurfing is my sport. So I started first sailing before going to windsurfing, because I started when I was 13 to go into windsurf, but I started at 9 into sailing. Why? Because I grew up in a small town in Mexico. It's a really small village, actually. Like, there's only 2,000 people by the beach, and there is like the national team that trains like right next to it. So it was like a bit of this chance when I was a kid. It was like, okay, what sports do you want to do? These are the choices. And I always really admired when I see them like in the sailing boats, you know. It was like the little boats, and then you see like the windsurfing from the beach, and it always seemed like if there was like, basically if they were flying, you know. And I was so amazed about it as a kid that I wanted to try it out. So I tried out first sailing, which was actually quite interesting, because you get like the basis on like how it works. But I switched rapidly into windsurfing. And it's just amazing, because you are able to control not just like yourself when you're doing the exercise, but also how you combine with the natural things around it. So with the wind, with the water, with the currents, with the waves, with so many different factors that you have to be thinking about it all the time. It's like it's like physical but strategic at the same time sport, which I love about that. So I was really like passionate when I started. I was like, okay, I want to be good at this. I want to stop falling, because it's also a sport which I find that is very beautiful, is that you keep falling all the time, you know, until you're good. So it's like a whole process of like, you want to get better, because otherwise you're not able to do anything. You're unable to do more than 3 meters without falling. So like this improvement rate was something that I really like driven in the beginning. And I did like my first competition after a few months, and I was like so amazed about it. I was like, okay, I love this adrenaline of racing, of creating a strategy, because windsurfing races are really similar to like a Formula 1 car race. So you have like a track, but you have all these natural conditions which are not there in Formula cars, because there's like waves and there's like currents that push you away and so on, and you have to try to go through this like circuit. And I found that it was like such like an exciting journey. So I trained harder and harder into getting into the national team, and I was a national team for many years. I was national champion and top 5 in North America and so on. But unfortunately, like in the moment where I was like in the peak of my career, I got an injury, and as I mentioned, injuries are a complete pain. And that was like something that changed a lot of the trajectory, not just of my athletic career, but also like my life in general. Like I changed completely the direction of where to go.
What kind of injury was it?
So it was during the North American Championship. Unfortunately, like the mast of my windsurfing sail broke on me. So it broke on the trapezium. So like basically it teared down, and it was like quite a strong one. And then of course the bicep gets involved as well. So it's like a whole like many small injuries in one, which makes it really hard to recover in a full 100% level to go into it. Because when it comes to windsurfing, the upper body's like the only thing that actually matters for it. So
yeah, you needed to control
the control and also pull. There's a lot, for example, depending on the wind conditions, you have to be like doing like repetitive like pulling on the sail all the time, doing 45 minutes in a row without stop.
Yeah.
So it's like a very like intense on it. Yeah.
Is the injury still bothering you?
No, so I don't go into like doing sports in like high performance level anymore, but it has been a few years already since that.
Yeah.
So I do other type of sports now. I play tennis and I do Pilates, for example.
Yeah, more Munich like sports.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. So you basically just loved it and did it every day until you got so good you were in the national team.
Yes, I trained every single day, and it was like really fun because it was like this motivation of just not getting better than the other ones, but getting better than yourself. Because I love this sport is that you are fighting against yourself. You're not fighting against the sea. You're not fighting against the wind, against your teammate competitors. No, you're just like against yourself. And I feel such like a strong motivation. And when I had like the luck to be able to qualify for the national team, it was so amazing. My coaches, I really, really, really admire them. They were super strict, super disciplined, but something that we were able to like perform way better as not just athletes, but as this person in general, because we're pushed to the limits all the time. We had like trainings every single day, even if it's like a thunder, we will go and train. Even if you're tired, you go and train, you know? Even if your hands are bleeding sometimes, just like put water on them and continue training, you know? Like this is like something that really pushes you to go through like challenges in life after that. So yeah, I trained every single day for many, many years, but I loved it, every second of it.
Yeah, I can hear it from your voice. Great. But did this feel like a huge loss when you got injured? And like
yes.
What I see oftentimes with professional athletes, they drag their career a lot longer than they should after their peak. So like, I think a good example right now is Lewis Hamilton at F1.
Yes.
Like he was the best 5 years ago, but I think everybody agrees now that Max is better, and it seems like Leclerc is outperforming him now. You also watch?
Yes, I also watch F1. Yes.
And I think lots of athletes drag their career along because they just don't know what to do afterwards. And they just try to get back, even though they can't improve past their previous peaks. So what did you do then? Like, it's normal to fall into a hole if you do this every day, most of the day, and get to such a high level. Like, how did you get out of that?
So that was a moment where you actually reflect about everything in your life. Like, what do you actually want to do? Who are you? Because happens with athletes, also happens with founders. Like, you become your profession, becomes your identity in a certain degree. And once you take that away from you, you question who are you, you know? Yeah. And so in that moment, I decided that actually I wanted to study art history and move to Florence. So I had like this really drastic change and moved to Italy. Yeah. And start from scratch. I didn't even really speak Italian back then. I didn't know anyone there, and I just had to learn in the way, just put myself into like a new challenge, you know? Learn Italian in 2 months, go to the university in a language you don't understand, a city you've never been before, you know, try to get into it. I was really interested in that point to be able to do like cultural heritage preservation during war. So that was like my main focus on research at that point. So how to use like AI to like develop like for example ways to protect art when there's wars happening in the future or stuff like this. So that was like, okay, I need like a new challenge to get into it. This is something I find interesting, let's just go for it.
Okay, so you could just accept that the Olympics were gone and the recovery would take so long that you wouldn't get back to and just decide to move on. So
I feel like in life sometimes happens type of things where you have to decide on how you feel about your things that are happening to you. So I could have just like stayed in bed and cry for months and be like, oh no, it's such a bad luck. But I feel like this would not have bring you anything forward. Yeah. Like sometimes you realize, okay, I failed. Even if it's my fault or not my fault, you could be argued that I pushed too much, you know? But you have to accept it and move forward. You have to like say, okay, it's how it is. I will just do the best out of the situation. And that's something that's very sad because I see with so many athletes that just like stay in there like, oh, I was so good. I would never be that good in anything in my life. Yeah. I personally think that everybody has so many different talents and they can just change their life directions at any point in history, basically. So even if you're doing something right now and something happens, you get injured or like you realize that actually is not what you want to do, because that also is like a valid way that you can just switch directions and go into something different.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, this also what you meant with you failed so often, then it didn't matter when you reached out at TUM Boring or get a no from a cold email, just continue it forward.
Yeah, just continue. I think it's a lot into your mindset. You know, you have to be able to say, okay, there's 1,000 challenges you could be doing right now. If something doesn't work out, it's fine, because you're just like at the point that you don't give up is the most important. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. My head is now full and empty at the same time. I always have a special question for every guest, and it's what was your personal biggest learning on your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, that's a very interesting one.
Like for you personally, not for the audience. Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah.
I think that for me the biggest learning is that I don't know anything about any industry, even if I have been a long time into it. So something I learned is that when we started, I was like, okay, I have been an athlete. I know about sports. I know what athletes like, what they do, and so on. And by talking with first, because we did like different interviews with athletes before starting developing the product, and once we had the product, I realized that like how many like small problems a product of this can have for them, and that you don't know anything about. So just going to like more open-minded to any challenge or any development, I would just get opinion and feedback from everyone I can get of that are in this industry. Because I realized that even if something for me was an issue, for them might not have been an issue. Or things like little details, as for example, we developed our first version was like a band you put around your arm. For example, when we do for like biceps, something that I was like, okay, I would definitely use that myself. Well, you are not your customer. So we talked with hundreds of customers, and they were like, oh, I never wear a band because it's so uncomfortable. Even if it's like a cotton band, very nice, very comfy and everything, there's like, no, it's just having like an extra step on my training that I would not go through it. And it made us like redesign everything from scratch. It was like, okay, we are back in the drawing board. How can we create something that people don't have to have like an extra step of wearing something extra to make it like as seamless as possible? That's how we went into like having a mechanical adhesive that sticks to your skin. Something we never actually even thought of. But there are the little details which matter so much, and you are not your customer, and you don't know anything about the industry, even if you have been there for a long time.
Okay, interesting. Be aware of what you not know.
Exactly. That's like something like for me was very important learning, and now like from now on to the future, I always like take into account that any of these decisions, I always like ask people, and people are really willing to help. Like people love to give feedback, they love to give their opinion, and I'm really grateful about their opinions and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. So then, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I hope you leave a like and a subscription. Bye.